Hi everyone, this is Cadence again. Today I'm going to be talking about how to use formative assessment to drive our instruction. So we do formative assessment in using the BAS or a BFA or even just a simple running record in your class. So today Martha and I are going to really dissect and dive deeper into what you do next. And I'm going to be using this BAS that I performed on a second grade student, and it's a nonfiction text called More Than a Pet. It is the level J. And I chose this level because this student demonstrated proficiency at the level I, and so he was ready to move on to the J. And as we take a look at how he did, his accuracy was 99%. And his comprehension was 3 out of 6. So since his accuracy was at such a high level, I'm going to really focus on comprehension with this student and talking to him during group time about things that he needs to work on. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this over. And whenever we start a BAS, we ask the child to talk about what they learned in the book. And what we'd like for them to do is to give us 2 to 3 examples, specific examples of things that they read in the text. And then we can record those here. So sometimes we might not have to ask them all these questions because they might answer some of those questions as they're talking. Now, when he did, he talked about how dogs make people happy, and sometimes we use them for work. And then he talked about how they get things for their owners. And when I asked him this last question, he said that pet dogs help feel better. So when I asked again, can you tell me anything else? He couldn't really give me any other examples. And so what I would then do is go to the prompting guide. Now there are 2 prompting guides to use. The first one is prompting guide number 1 by Fountas and Pinnell. And this prompting guide is really for the accuracy and word work pieces. And if we look on the 3rd page, at the bottom, you're going to find a little guide or key to help you know how to navigate through this. So if we're thinking within the text, we're going to use prompting guide 1, but this is the oral reading part. So the solving words, monitoring and correcting, search for and use information, maintain fluency, and adjust reading. Now since my piece is about the reading comprehension and thinking within the text, I want to go to the part where it talks about where to summarize. And I'm going to find this in prompting guide 2. So let me go ahead and close this one and use prompting guide 2. Now you can find that same key in prompting guide 2, and it's on the 2nd page at the top. So again, I'm going to look for summarize. Now the great thing about this tool is it has the little tabs on the side that go ahead and tell us each of the sections that are in the book. So there's self-monitoring and self-correcting meaning, searching for and using meaning, and then I see summarizing down here. So I'm going to go ahead and choose one of those. Sorry, this is a little, find the spot here. So when I am choosing this, if I look right here, I can see summarizing. And when I'm using this, there's the general, then there's also some about fiction and some about nonfiction. So depending on what text you're using, you're going to want to select the piece that best matches what you're doing. But if you just use the general, that can sometimes be used for both. So when I think about what it is that the question that I want him to answer, or I want him to be able to give 2 to 3 examples, and we want them to be specific examples. So in group, I might want to ask him some of these questions as prompts as during my guided reading or conferencing time. So I might ask him, think about what you know so far. Tell about the whole story in just a few sentences. So just getting him used to doing that thinking. And I really think that since he really had a grasp on what was going on, just asking some of those questions will really help him in that section. Okay, now let's go ahead and take a look at the next section, which is beyond and about the text. And if we think about what he did when we asked, why do you think dogs can be so helpful? He said, dogs see for people. And that's actually something that I was hoping he would have set up here. And I can give him a little credit for that and count that for that. But I also want him to say, well, why do you think dogs can be so helpful? I want him to add something else. Now, they don't have to say exactly what's over here, but we do want something similar or comparable. So both of these questions are, why do you think? Why do you think dogs are so important? Why do you think they're helpful? And if we look at the why do you think, that's really asking kids to make connections. So when I again go to this document, to the prompting guide, I can look at the part where they are making connections. I have a little sticky here to help me. But if you look right here, they are making connections to the world. So why might learning about this topic be important? But also on the back side, it talks about non-fiction texts and really about the organization of what's happening. And that question, which why do you think it's so important, is really about that. So I might use any of these prompts to help him practice in class. Okay, the next piece that he struggled with was looking at the photograph. So we said, look at the photograph on page 13. What information does it give you? And what he said was she can't see. And that's really about the woman and not about what the dog is. So he really wasn't thinking about what the story was about and giving me something related to the story. So this is more about analyzing the text. So I then would go to the section or find the tab on the side that talks about analyzing the text. So let's see. Here's analyzing general. Flip over to that. And there's a few questions here, but I'm going to look a little bit deeper and see if there's something more related to nonfiction. And if I look on the back, here is a few things, and it says, what does the author want you to know about blank? What does he want you to know about blank? That might be a good one to use. Or the other piece is using the part about the graphics. And some of the sections will have pieces with graphics, and others might not. So you kind of just have to search your way through this document and figure out the best one to use. Now the last one talks about the heading. So what is it within analyzing that they want them to talk about with the heading? So let's go ahead and go to that last piece and ask ourselves that question. Oh, here's the part about the graphics. So what are some of the decisions the illustrator made? How do the graphics enhance or support the message? So these are the types of questions I would use with him. And when you are doing a text that is not a Bass or a running record, One of the things that you can do is look at some of the questions that are here already, or look at some of the questions in the prompting guide and try to come up with something that's comparable to the ones that you see here. One last resource I might use is the Continuum of Literacy Learning, which I know that Yulita had introduced during this session as well. And so what I would do is turn to the level J in this section. And, oh look, there's the therapy dogs. And it talks about what readers at this level should be able to do on the first page. And then it goes through selecting text. But on the second page, it really gets deeper with within the text, beyond the text on the second page, and about the text. So these are just two of the many resources that you can use. These are both from Fountas and Pinnell, so they are well aligned. And, you know, the other piece is just try and use it out. Go ahead and try and use it and figure it out. And if you can't or you're unsure, go and ask your coach or even a colleague. There is really no wrong way to do it. You just use what you know about your students and what you know from the guides and form your teaching points based on those.